Hi there, my name is Ron Pereira, and I'd like to officially welcome you to this first overview module of the Gemba Academy Practical Problem Solving course. Well, by the end of this module, you'll know what a problem is, as well as why companies such as Toyota use a form of practical problem solving to this very day in order to improve their way of working. Next, you'll also be introduced to other problem-solving approaches such as the Six Sigma denote methodology. And finally, by the end of this module, you'll know what the 8 steps to practical problem-solving are as we prepare to take a deep dive into each step throughout the rest of this course. Okay, well, let's get started by first answering a fundamental question. What is a problem? Well, first of all, a problem can be defined as any deviation from the standard. Now, it can also be defined as a gap between actual and desired conditions. And finally, a problem can be defined as an unfulfilled customer need. Now, taking it a bit further, we're often able to classify problems into one of 3 types. Now, the first is when the standard is not achieved. In other words, if our target is 100% on-time delivery and we experience a month of 82% on-time delivery, our actual performance doesn't meet the standard. Now, the second type of problem occurs when the standard is achieved, but a higher standard is now required. Now, staying with the on-time delivery example, if we're currently performing at 100% on-time delivery at a quoted lead time of 2 weeks, our customers may very well ask us to reduce our lead time to 1 week while still maintaining 100% on-time delivery. And finally, the third type of problem occurs when our performance to the standard varies, meaning it's not consistently achieved. Now, this is actually a form of mura, or unevenness, which we first learned about in the Transforming Your Value Streams course. All right, well, now that we've been introduced to what a problem is, let's now turn our attention to why practical problem solving is such a powerful approach to tackling issues burdening you and your organization. Well, first of all, practical problem solving enables organizations to have a common understanding and definition of what a problem actually is, which in turn creates a fast and urgent initial response. Next, a standard problem-solving approach removes time lost in debate and discussion. In other words, organizations are able to focus their valuable time and energy on things that actually matter, such as solving problems. And finally, through planning, root cause analysis, and the implementation of mistake proofing ensures problems don't reoccur, since there's nothing more disheartening than to see a problem reappear a few months after it was thought to be solved. Now then, throughout this problem-solving course, we'll be referring to the PDCA cycle, which stands for Plan, Do, Check, and Act. And in particular, we'll be spending a lot of time on the first step, which is plan, since the failure to plan properly, as shown on the top side of this diagram, almost always results in longer times to resolve the problem. In other words, this organization rushed through the planning phase only to pay for this hastiness and the check and act phases. And on the other hand, when an organization takes the time to do slow, thorough planning, as prescribed in the practical problem-solving approach, they're far more likely to solve their problems faster and far more efficiently, as we see here. All right, so those are just a few of the reasons why practical problem solving is so powerful. Now, I'd like to turn our focus towards a few of the other problem solving approaches used today by companies before we take a deeper dive into the 8-step practical problem solving roadmap. First of all, depending on the problem at hand, many companies utilize one of the simplest problem solving methodologies available today, known as just do it. In other words, for small problems that may not require much time or resources, it's sometimes possible to quickly fix them and move on. Well, these might be likened to so-called low-hanging fruit initiatives. Next, Ford Motor Company adopted a problem-solving process known as 8 disciplines, which takes 8 disciplines and uses them to tackle engineering problems. Now, some actually confuse 8D with the 8 steps of practical problem solving, and while they do share some similarities, they are different. Now, another extremely powerful problem-solving approach finds its roots in the Six Sigma methodology. Now, specifically, Six Sigma practitioners around the world have used the denote, or define, measure, analyze, improve, and control process to attack problems associated with variation and defects for many years. As an aside, if you're interested in learning more about Six Sigma, please be sure to check out Gemba Academy's School of Six Sigma. Okay, well, to wrap up this overview module, I'd like to officially introduce you to the 8-step practical problem-solving process. Now, throughout the rest of this course, where we'll follow an actual case study, we'll be taking a deep dive into each step. But for now, we just want you to become familiar with their names. Now, I'd also like to point out that these 8 steps are based closely on what Toyota calls the Toyota business practice, which is a detailed explanation of how the PDCA cycle works. Okay, well, the first step in the process has us clarifying the problem. In other words, we must clearly describe the current situation while going to see with our own eyes in order to get the facts. Now, we also want to answer questions such as whether we've contained the problem in order to protect the customer, even if this means implementing a temporary solution. The second step of the process has us breaking the big, vague problem down into its smaller, more specific problems. Again, we want to go see the actual problem, process, or situation with our own eyes. Now, during this step, we'll also take time to study the various inputs and outputs of the process, helping us to properly scope and prioritize our efforts. Next, once we've scoped the problem, it's time to set a target which we will achieve, which is step 3. Now, this is an important step as it forces us to make a commitment. Now, this target should definitely be a challenge, but also something that helps limit the scope. In other words, it becomes a must-do target. Finally, it's important to remember that this target should take us one step towards the ideal, meaning it doesn't have to be our gargantuan leap towards perfection. Instead, we'll focus on taking one solid step at a time. Next, step 4 has us analyzing the root cause. Now, once again, to do this, we must practice Genchi Genbutsu without prejudice, which means we must go and see the problems for ourselves instead of relying on what a report says. During this step, we'll work to find points of cause, which is the starting point of root cause analysis. Now, as it turns out, there are often multiple points of cause, so we must drill down using things like the 5 why. And for the record, 5 is not a magic number. It's just a typical number suggested to get to the root cause. Now then, a proper root cause analysis will point to the action needed, namely the removal of the root cause. To do this, you and your team will need to make a plan that includes who, what, and when, enabling you to pursue multiple countermeasures, which is step 5 of the practical problem-solving process. Step 6 has us seeing the countermeasures through as we implement our countermeasures quickly as a team. Now, to accomplish this, it's important to seek the help and, most importantly, the ideas of many people. You'll also want to communicate this status regularly while turning the PDCA cycle again and again. And perhaps the best advice we can offer with this step is to never, ever give up. You'll no doubt hit obstacles and challenges, but your willingness to persevere and battle through these situations may very well mean the difference between success and failure. Step 7 is often called the follow-up phase as we evaluate both the results and the process. Now, during this step, you'll want to ask the question, was this an effective countermeasure or just luck? Now, this is an important question to ask since if you look closely at this picture of the famous square peg in the round hole example, you'll realize sometimes even great ideas, such as ensuring only round pegs get inserted, have room for improvement since a person with a square peg and hammer just might find ways around this error-proof device. Finally, step 8 of the practical problem-solving method challenges us to standardize success using something the Japanese called yokuten, which loosely translated means to copy and expand good Kaizen ideas to other areas while also identifying unresolved issues. And in addition to building on successes, we must also face and learn from unresolved issues. In fact, we should never shy away from these challenges since failure to address them could lead to problems reappearing in the near future. Finally, during this 8th and final step, we must set the next targets for improvement since the phrase, "no problem is a problem," is so very true. Okay, and that covers the overview of the 8 steps of practical problem solving. Obviously, we've only offered a brief overview of these 8 steps in this first module, but rest assured, throughout the rest of this course, we'll take you on a deep journey through each and every step as we work through a case study example of a company solving a particular problem using this powerful 8-step roadmap. Now then, in our next module, we're going to continue the journey as we explore the PDCA cycle. So, we'll speak to you soon.